Someone told me they saw Zelensky at Men's Wearhouse the other day. Can anyone confirm or deny that? Good morning, 6:05. The rain is falling across Kansas City. Glad you're here on KCMO 95.7 FM. So, remember that employee with Doge? No one knows who he is, but he's called Big Balls. Remember that guy, Mark, that people have kind of talked about behind the scenes a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
No one knows who he is.
No.
But his nickname is Big Balls.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm wondering if that's secretly just President Trump. I don't know. I cannot confirm or deny this. I will send the crack investigative staff on this after the show. But I'm starting to wonder whether or not that's just secretly his nickname. Because yesterday, Donald Trump, when it comes to a couple of things, is just saying, this is what I think this country needs. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I'm willing to take potentially some short-term hits to do what I think the country needs to do to get back on track. First off, U.S. military aid to Ukraine, that has been paused. And that has been paused until, as Peter Doocy reported at the White House yesterday, Zelensky gives an official apology for what happened in the Oval Office.
There's quite a disconnect happening here at the White House and with their allies in Kyiv, because I have been told by a senior official here that nothing's going to happen with this minerals deal until Zelensky goes in front of cameras and makes an explicit public apology for the way that he behaved in the Oval Office with that meeting.
So this is just Trump, at the point where he is just going to make sure that Zelensky basically neuters himself. To the point where Zelensky understands that what's happened over the last 3 years, yes, he has very brave people. He has a very brave country and a group of fighters, but none of it would have been possible without the United States. And Trump was not the one who tried to get it to this point. Let's be very clear. As J.D. Vance noted last night during a sit-down interview on Fox News, Friday's plans at the White House were supposed to be ceremonial. Was supposed to be for the cameras, backslapping, this is great, this minerals deal is going to be awesome. You guys are going to be in a good spot going forward. The war is going to end. And obviously, it totally unraveled from there.
When the Ukrainians came to Washington on Friday, it was supposed to be ceremonial. There had been some public back and forth, some disagreements, some words spoken in public. And the president was like, let's have this moment. We give some credit to the brave Ukrainian fighters. And of course, it's a very brave army that they have there in Ukraine. Let's sign this minerals deal, which importantly does two things. It allows the American people to get some of their money back, but it also shows the Ukrainian people that America has a long-term investment in their sovereignty. You do those things, we'll sign this thing, we'll have a rah-rah moment, and then we'll get to the tough talk of negotiating peace. We couldn't even get the Ukrainians to a point where they could talk about the peaceful settlement. And look, in some ways, Sean, I get it. I get the frustration. I get the rage. It's their country. Of course, it's not our country. But you've got to accept, cooler heads have got to prevail. This thing cannot go on forever. This is the important point. I'd say this to our, of course, most importantly, the Americans who are watching, but people all over the world. When you talk to leaders in private, whether they're Ukrainian or European, when you talk to people in private, they will tell you this cannot go on forever.
That I thought was very deferential from J.D. Vance, who has been called an anti-Ukraine Putin simp. And I hear a guy say right there, as the vice president, Ukraine has a brave army, but the point on Friday was to get everybody together, have a ceremonial photo op, and basically move on, find some peace, and focus, frankly, on other things and more important parts of the world, with all due respect, like China. That's what I hear there from J.D. Vance. And then it's Zelensky who walks into the White House and basically trashes the leader and doesn't show a lot of, I would say, respect for the American taxpayer in the process.
Show some RESPICT.
There was no respect shown by Zelensky in that moment. And that's not what it was intended to be. This was not like supposed to be some kind of late ambush from Trump and Vance to try to secretly create this situation that we now find ourselves in with Ukraine. That definitely has Putin smiling. He finds himself, I'm sure, in a very good spot this week, or at least he feels like he does. Whether or not he should is another story. So now you've got the military aid paused to Ukraine until Zelensky basically embarrasses himself. Like, this is not ideal for Zelensky, but I think at this point, Trump's trying to get a broader point across, which is that this world in general would be a mess and run by awful dictators if it wasn't for the United States protecting so much of the West. There is no respect for Europe in any of this. That's also become very clear. And frankly, I'm not sure there should be. You know, there was a poll that came out yesterday. I saw it on CNN. And it was a poll that shared how Europeans feel about Ukraine and whether or not they're getting enough Western support. Most of the countries, France, Italy, Germany, Britain, Spain, Sweden, Denmark, all say by a majority that they don't think Ukraine is getting enough Western support. However, the question was then asked whether or not their country should increase support. None of them said yes. Not one of these countries, when polled, said that they should increase their own support, but they all don't think Ukraine is getting enough support. That is Europe in a nutshell. And here in America, we're sick of it. All right? We are sick of these freeloaders pointing the finger at us and saying, you guys take care of it. You're the United States. You do what needs to be done. We are happy to help in this country because we are the greatest country in the history of mankind. We are happy to do our job as the leader of the free world. But you guys got to kick in a little more. I mean, it's less than half of what we've put in to help Ukraine. And yes, it's brave army, as J.D. Vance called it, fight. But the days of Europe freeloading off of us as they continue to promote awful policies on energy, where they're getting their oil from Ukraine, on immigration, where they're losing all their culture, we're done. And that's the broader theme here. So that story moves into another day here on a Tuesday morning. And then we also have tariffs getting set to begin today. 25% taxes on imports from Mexico and Canada starting today. Stock market did not like it yesterday. Dow was off a couple of percentage points, same with the NASDAQ and the S&P. I am not inherently a tariff guy. We understand that tariff is passed on as basically a tax to the consumer. I'm not. I'm willing to give this a chance to see if Donald Trump gets the concessions that he wants from Mexico and Canada. I don't believe these are intended to be permanent. I believe these are used as leverage and as a negotiating tool. And I will say this much too. I'm not going to freak out again about the stock market. I'm not. Stock market did great for 4 years under Joe Biden. He borrowed his way to getting a frothy stock market while Main Street got its butt absolutely kicked. Wall Street did great. The wealth gap grew in this country. The middle class got squeezed and shrunk. And you know what? This country is not going to be robust without a strong middle class. We need it. So even as someone who likes to check in on the 401k, I am willing to take a hit on that. And I think we all should be giving this a chance to see how it plays out in the months ahead, knowing that it's not hopefully going to be forever.
It's nice to know that it's coming. We've been told you can plan around that, if you will, at least mentally, right?
Yes,
it's
that
not
is true.
Something out of the blue because some wacky executive order, right?
No, exactly.
From the other administration where you're losing money left and right.
Yeah, we were in that spot for way too long.
You know, this is coming. We prepare. This is all part of the cycle.
And it will impact certain industries more than others. There's no doubt about that. But Trump's big thing is, you know what? Bring your manufacturing, bring your industry here to the United States. And then you have, well, no tariffs. Now, admittedly, that doesn't happen overnight. Industry doesn't just say, you know what? All right, we'll go from Toronto to Buffalo. I mean, that's not like something that you just do randomly. But the broader point is here, can we get some more wins on Main Street? Can we see the middle class in this country grow and succeed and get rid of our $2 trillion deficits as well? That's what DOGE is obviously working on. These tariffs are intended to recalibrate our relationships all over the world and see how it plays out. The problem is, and this is why no politician has done something like this before, we have short-term memories. The political cycle swings quickly from one side to the other. And that's why people, I believe, have been afraid to do it in large part. Because, frankly, they don't want to, because it oftentimes will hurt their political prospects. But a lot of these things do need to be done. The question is, what is the appetite from the American people to get it done? And how long is the runway for Donald Trump? How much of a honeymoon does he have here from the American people? That remains to be seen as well. In 20 minutes, Roger Marshall, Kansas U.S. Senator, is going to be here after he got shouted out of a town hall a couple of days ago in Oakley, Kansas. So he will be joining us coming up at 6:35 on 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. And if you haven't seen it, Roger Marshall alleging on social media yesterday that these were paid protesters. Well, the leadership in the other party has responded to that. What are they saying? We'll get to next. It's quite a weather forecast from our friend Savannah Tennyson. It's like, and other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Hail, storms, snow's coming tomorrow, blizzard warning tonight. Outside of that, things are great.
We got Melissa on duty this morning.
Oh,
Melissa Meter.
Oh, was it Melissa?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah,
Savannah
same to your
Melissa.
point, though. It's like, yeah, great news, huh?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I thought we were done with it all.
I know.
Apparently not.
I went out and changed out my snow decorations out in front. We've got, we'll let it snow, welcome, and all that kind of stuff. But I did not put any plants out, and I see some people did, and I'm like, what do you think?
Big mistake.
Yeah.
My mistake is I paid for a car wash on Saturday. Shame on me. I just couldn't stand looking at the car.
Well,
it's filthy.
Sometimes you got to do it, right?
I know, but I feel like I'm going to be back there next Saturday. That's the part that annoys me, but I couldn't look at the dang thing anymore. It just, gosh, when it gets that salt on it, you just get that grimy feeling inside.
Can you just go in and get the undercoating?
Yeah.
Leave the bubbles off the top, if you will.
Oh, my gosh. Well, 2 days ago, Roger Marshall was out in Oakley, Kansas, western part of the state. I mean, that is diehard Donald Trump country. And this story got national news because he walked out of a town hall. Place was packed to the gills. And the reality is there were a lot of people there who were from other parts of the state. Now, they're still his constituents, but they're not people from Oakley, Kansas, where Roger Marshall won over 80% of the vote when he was on the ballot back in 2020. There were individuals from Lawrence, Kansas, the bluest part of the state, home of KU, who were there. I mean, they were bragging about it on Channel 9, KMBC here locally. So Marshall walks out of his town hall, and here's what it sounded like.
Is doing right now as far as cutting out those jobs, a huge percentage of those people, and I know you care about the veterans, are veterans.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that is a damn shame.
Yes. Yeah.
That is a damn shame.
I'm not a Democrat, but I'm worried about the veterans, man.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, bro.
Well, I yielded to one of my elders, and I appreciate his comments. I think it's a great, we don't have time for everyone to stand up. I do got 2 more commitments today. Appreciate everybody making the drive out, and God bless America. Thank you. We're going to take pictures with you, buddy, right?
Mark loves the picture guy. I just want my picture, buddy. That's Mark's favorite.
We're going to take pictures with you, buddy, right?
That's Mark's pal, whoever that guy is in the background.
Right?
I love that Karen. We're gonna vote you out. That's my favorite. But Roger Marshall shared a screenshot of Trump's Truth Social post yesterday that read, paid troublemakers are attending Republican town hall meetings. It is all part of the game for the Democrats. But just like our big landslide election, it's not going to work out for them. And Roger Marshall shared that yesterday on X and just wrote, can confirm. So I will ask him about this in 10 minutes. He's going to be on the show here on KCMO. What the heck happened out there? We will talk about Donald Trump's speech tonight as well that he is planning to give to the nation. So both of those things are coming up. But Hakeem Jeffries, the, not Speaker of the House, thank goodness, but obviously the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives, he responded to this accusation yesterday from Trump and Roger Marshall. And here's what he said about whether or not paid protesters are showing up at some of these Republican town halls. We've seen a similar situation take place on the Missouri side of the state line at one of Mark Alford's town halls. Here's Hakeem Jeffries.
I'm told that Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, and the extreme MAGA Republicans are claiming that Democrats are sending paid protesters into their town hall meetings. What's wrong with y'all? What's wrong with y'all? You don't need to send paid protesters into your town hall meetings. The American people are with us all across the country. People are rising up to push back against the assault on the economy, the assault on hardworking families, the assault on our democracy, and the assault on Medicaid. We don't need paid protesters, bro.
Bro, we don't need them, bruh. Come on now. We're still doing the assault on democracy stuff. Everything's a threat to democracy. I thought we might have learned a lesson in November off of using phrases like that. But I guess it's back, or maybe it never went away. I don't know. But that is what Hakeem Jeffries is saying. I don't know if they're paid or not, but I do know that many of them are from outside of the region where these town halls are taking place. We know that for a fact. I mean, we had guys on Channel 9 here in Kansas City who went from Lawrence to Oakley, Kansas. That's like a 4-hour drive from the bluest part of the state to the reddest part of the state. Now, they're allowed to go. They're constituents of the senators. But let's be honest, it's a very different crowd when you talk about doing it with Lawrence individuals versus Oakley, Kansas residents. All right? Now, interestingly, our friends, tongue-in-cheek, over at Woke 41, one of their TV broadcasters, his name is Taylor Hemis, I believe is his name. Does that sound right, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I got that right. He was very upset yesterday. He said, I called every number on Roger Marshall's website. That's several state offices and D.C. All of them went to voicemail. Some could not even accept messages. I've also reached out via email and Instagram. I have not received a response. He demands to speak with Senator Marshall. Well, I hereby declare Woke 41 can use any audio from our upcoming interview. All I ask is that they properly credit the audio with 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio, and Woke 41 can use any clips from the senator that they deem newsworthy. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that on the air with my friends over at Woke 41 Action News. Well, tonight, Donald Trump will address the nation in a joint address to Congress. It will air at 8 p.m. here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. And listen, there are a lot of wins to celebrate, but we also know that the economy, by and large, has a long ways to go to improve for Main Street. We know the stock market's a little jittery right now. The tariffs are getting set to begin today for Mexico and Canada. So what does it all mean, and how do we make sure that the economy remains issue number one for the White House? Steve Moore is a longtime advisor to President Trump on economic issues. He is here on KCMO Talk Radio. Steve, I saw you were quoted in the Wall Street Journal. This piece headlined, Trump has glossed over high prices. Republicans worry it will cost them. So what is your main message to Donald Trump and the administration right now on this issue in particular?
Well, good morning, Pete. Great to be with you. Look, Trump is doing he's raced out of the gate in the first month in office like Secretariat, and everybody has to be incredibly impressed by the amazing things he's doing. And by the way, I would add to that what Elon Musk is doing with Doge and finding every day tens and hundreds of billions of dollars of waste in Washington, which is something you and I have talked about over the years on this show. And finally, that fraud is being put in the spotlight. But we have seen a tick up of inflation. I think a lot of that is a result of the fact that we had the massive spending spree under Biden in his last few weeks in office, and so that's something that is a real problem. We can't see rise in prices, and then we also had, unfortunately, yesterday the the Atlanta Fed put out a report showing that in the first quarter of the year the GDP fell a little bit. So we've got a little work to do to get this economy back on track.
So what would Steve Moore do today to try to make that happen?
Oh, that's a trick question. I mean, it's such an easy one. We have to get the tax cut done immediately, urgently. I think most of your listeners understand that if we don't get this done, we're going to face the biggest tax increase in American history on January 1st. In other words, the average family in Kansas City will pay a $3,000 increase in their taxes. Virtually every small business in America will pay higher taxes. Our corporations will pay higher taxes. So that has to get done. And I've been making the argument: why is this taking so long? We have a president who's extremely popular. He's got wind at his back. We have a Republican House, Republican Senate, albeit with very low margins, but they do have the majorities. What are they waiting for?
Well, Steve,
get it done.
How does a tax cut extension? They've got to do it. You're spot on. But how does a tax cut extension do anything for prices today?
Well, because when you increase, when we did the tax cut, what happened to inflation? You remember this was originally put in place in 2017, took effect in 2018. We had the lowest inflation we've had in 30 years after the tax cut. Why is that? There's a reason, Pete, that to call people like myself and Larry Kudlow and Art Laffer supply-siders, because we believe that the way you reduce inflation is to increase the productive capacity of the country, which is what tax cuts do. They incentivize businesses to produce more products and workers to work more. Because if they cut the tax, then your incentive to work more increases. And so we can bring inflation down. Let me keep this very simple, Pete. If the price of if the number of apples that's produced goes up, what happens to the price?
Goes down.
Ding, ding, you got it, my friend. So this is simple stuff. We need to do things that make the productive capacity of our country larger. By the way, that's a reason that the deregulation efforts that Trump is putting into effect are going to have a very positive effect. And so I had to laugh the other day when Chucky Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, ran to the camera and said, "Look, Trump's causing this inflation." When he was talking about the January inflation numbers. Wait a minute, Trump wasn't even in office until January 22nd.
Well, let me ask you this, Steve Moore, former economic advisor to Donald Trump on KCMO Talk Radio. When you look at things like, okay, everyone's talking about these egg prices. I don't think it's not Trump's fault. It's also not Biden's fault. We've got this bird flu thing. I mean, we talk about supply and demand. You decrease the supply of chickens, prices are going to go up on eggs. So is there anything that he can do or should do on that, or is it just going to have to basically figure itself out over time by just repopulating the chickens?
Sure. I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about before. If you have fewer chickens, you're going to have fewer eggs, right? But one thing, by the way, here's a little mystery that I've been wondering about. Maybe some of your listeners may have an answer to this. Why is it that the price of eggs has gone way up, but the price of chicken wings hasn't?
I don't know, Steve. What's your theory there?
It's a mystery. It's an economic mystery. But it's true. I mean, if you go to we bought chicken wings last night for dinner, and they were up a little bit, but not up double like egg prices are. So that's a bit of a mystery. But look, you're right. This was the bird flu. But we killed, what was it? I forget. 10 million chickens. Mm-hmm. And so prices of eggs went up as a consequence of that.
How about these tariffs that start today with Mexico and Canada? I understand the president looks at them as a tool, but what are your concerns around the tariffs, or maybe you don't have any in terms of what it means going forward?
Yeah, I do have concerns, and you and I have known each other a long time. I'm a free trade guy. I am a Milton Friedman apostle. And, he taught us that free trade was one of the pillars of prosperity with, lower taxes and less regulation. And that tariffs are just a tax. If you impose higher taxes on things that come in from Mexico and Canada, what do you think is going to happen to the price? It's going to go up.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think this is a smart, I love this president. Let me be very clear. I don't, and he knows every time I see President Trump, he says, there's Steve Moore, he's a great economist, but he doesn't agree with me on tariffs. And I just smile and say, no, Mr. President, I don't. But look, some of the tariffs do make sense. I mean, I do think, don't you, that we should get very tough with China. And China's been cheating and stealing, and they're an economically predatory country. So we need to strike back at China. And China, by the way, imposes huge tariffs on us. Mm-hmm. And so I do like the idea of the reciprocal tariffs, but I just don't understand. And Canada and Mexico are two of our most important allies, and we don't want to weaken their economy in any way. So we'll see how that one works out, but I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah, Steve Moore on KCMO Talk Radio. So now we've got the speech tonight, the presidential joint address to Congress. If Steve Moore could hear one thing tonight from the President of the United States on the economic front, what would it be?
Well, as I said at the outset, he has to look right in the camera and tell 150 million Americans who will be watching tonight that we need to make sure that we're not going to be hit with the biggest tax increase in American history. We have to, it's a sense of urgency to get this tax bill through so that businesses and Wall Street investors know that we're not going to face higher, corporate taxes, higher small business taxes. And look, every single small business, with a few exceptions, got a tax cut. Where do the jobs come from? They come from small businesses. How about American families? They received on average a $3,000 tax cut. How are we going to revive the economy if we're going to hit families with a $3,000 tax increase? So I think that has to be his message. We've got to get that done, and then I think he needs to show the evidence that's come out from Doge and Elon Musk every single day, how much money has been stolen, wasted, gone to fraud, gone to duplication. There was a report that came out just the other day that almost 1 out of every 5 Medicaid dollars, and Medicaid is a huge program. You know that it's hundreds of millions of billions of dollars go to Medicaid. 1 out of every $5 was either improper or fraud. Mm-hmm. Think about that.
That is wild.
1 out of every 5. It is wild. How about California? You want to know something stupid about how government works? We pay this year, the state of California will get $120 billion from the federal government for Medicaid. $120 billion. By the way, the Missouri and Kansas budgets together are probably $40 billion. So what's happening is California's putting every citizen they can on Medicaid because they get all this free money from Washington. I mean, you cannot make up how stupid this stuff is. How about the fact that we're paying $10 billion, again, billion with a B, not million, $10 billion a year on rent on empty office buildings? How about the fact that we spent $1 trillion on the Department of Education over the last 30 years, and the more we spend, the more the test scores go down? You think we're getting anything in value from the Department of Education? Shut it down.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you're right. If we get back to cutting this $2 trillion deficit, that will help tremendously with inflation as well, because we're just devaluing the dollar. Steve Moore.
And by the way, I don't understand, by the way, why Elizabeth Warren and Chucky Schumer and all these Democrats are angry at Musk for exposing the waste and fraud. I mean, if you believe in big government, and look, I'm a little government guy, but if you believe in big government, don't you think you should believe in good government? Why would you defend fraud and waste?
That is well said, as always, by Steve Moore, who is also a chicken wing aficionado. News to me this morning. So thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. There you go. Steve Moore, former economic advisor to President Trump on KCMO, was quoted in the Wall Street Journal the other day. I wanted to get him back on the show. Coming up next, the way that one major media outlet covered this story and this vote on men and women's sports. Oh, my gosh. The propaganda is a 10 out of 10, and you don't want to miss it next on 95.7 FM. 7:24, good morning. Rain is falling across Kansas City. The snow, the blizzard is coming tonight. 1 to 3 inches are expected. Our buddy Luke Doris, KCTV5 chief meteorologist, will be here at 8:50 this morning. Don't forget, Tirade Tuesday is just over 1 hour away. And I had a good conversation privately with Bill O'Reilly yesterday. Hopefully I can share more with you on that in the days and weeks ahead. In the meantime, yesterday there was a vote in the U.S. Senate. And don't worry, we're all good here in Kansas and Missouri in terms of how our U.S. senators voted on both sides of our state line. But 45 Democratic senators voted no on protecting women and girls in sports. And they needed, of course, 60 votes to advance the bill. Instead, it failed 51-45 as Senate Democrats blocked this measure. And here was the headline from CBS News. Now, this has nothing to do with our local affiliate here on KCMO Talk Radio, but this is the national CBS News reporting on this. Senate Democrats on Monday blocked a measure that sought to ban transgender girls and women from competing on school sports teams that match their gender identity. Oh, man. It's just got to be exhausting to twist yourself into that kind of a pretzel to try to make sense of any of this stuff. Now, if I sit here and say, listen, transgender girl is not a girl, they'll say, yes, they are. Well, what makes them a transgender girl? Oh, you mean like the body part? Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Okay. And as the father of 3 daughters, with my youngest just turning 1 yesterday, Charlotte turned 1 year old, the youngest of 3 girls born on 3/3, and I shared some photos and gave her a shout out on my Instagram yesterday at Pete Mundo. You can see that there. This is an issue that obviously hits home for me, and I know hits home for many of you, but it should as well if you have sons or if you just care about like basic common sense science. That we aren't going to have to live in a world where we have to figure out how to explain to our daughters where they're competing against obvious males. Now, do I think this culture issue is going to be the thing that keeps Republicans in power forever? No. If the economy is not picking up by next year for Main Street, then guess what? Democrats are going to win back the House. I mean, that's just how it works. But the Democratic Party, if it was smart, would also give up on this insanity, give up on this nonsense of defending men competing against girls. Even if it wins them the midterms back next year, it's not going to be because of this issue. It will be in spite of this issue, and it will be largely driven by the fact that these issues are not the number one reason people go to vote. They oftentimes will vote based on the economy. And obviously, this past election, immigration, illegal immigration, was a big part of it as well. But if you guys want to keep going down this crazy road, it's like they learned nothing from November 5th. 45 Democrats in the U.S. Senate saying, nah, we're good with dudes and girls sports. We're fine with it. And then CBS News running these headlines, these just insane headlines, where the propaganda is just clear as day. Instead of saying a measure that sought to ban boys from competing on girls' sports teams, they do a measure to ban transgender girls and women from competing on school sports teams that match their gender identity. That's the route the CBS News decided to take. And it's going to kick them in the butt at some point. You can't continue on like this. Even if you pull off a midterm win, you can't continue on like this. And nobody apparently at the DNC HQ has gotten that message.